Okay, so first of all, hopefully everyone's safe and well here. During these unprecedented times. So that's the first thing I have to say. And I'm very excited today to talk to you about, this topic. I've been preparing for it for a while now, and again, I'm super excited to provide you with the opportunity to at least share some of the knowledge points I've gathered over my 20-year career in terms of prioritization, going from engineering into product management. So tonight's topic is, 5 different prioritization strategies that every product manager should know. And again, I'll go ahead and kick it off, and very excited to share this with you. So just for everyone's understanding, really today I'm just going to cover exactly what I said on the title page, which is 5 strategies, right? So I do also give product management suites of training, but tonight I am not going to cover that. But and also you may have some questions around, are these the only strategies, et cetera? And they are not. So I had to choose 5. So for tonight's talk, again, it's not every strategy. There's multiple strategies you can employ, but again, at least today will give you a good frame of mind of how to prioritize features. So with that said, I'd like to go into a quick question for everyone, at least for me to tailor this conversation with you all, is what is your current role in your organization? And with the options being product, engineering, design, program management, or other. And I'll give everyone about 30 to 60 seconds to go ahead and enter in the results. Looks like product is winning here for those that are entering it in. All right, so looks like mostly everyone is product, and for some reason I can't. Yeah, so it looks like everyone is product here. So sorry, I need to minimize to get out of that poll there. So thank you for answering it. And let me share the results here. All right. So looks like mostly everyone on the line is product. So let me go ahead and continue the conversation. So the first thing I'd like to do, at least to give you guys a background on product prioritization, since most of you that have answered the poll are specifically in product, I'll spend a little bit of time here, but most of my time will be on the prioritization strategies. So my thoughts on prioritization, this is, an important, again, an important topic in a product manager's life, as well as even engineering, data science, et cetera. But why is it really important? Well, if you think about it, prioritization of work to be done is all about either repair, which could be something in product support, infrastructure, et cetera, or even to build your product incrementally, as well as, new innovations, right? That you have. And so you have all these incoming requests, as well as you have your outgoing requests, your ideas, the motivations that you have for your product. And in order to sequence these things, in order to figure out how to move forward with each one of them, it's of the utmost importance to the company, right? So it's if every company would lack prioritization, they would be in trouble. But when it comes to specifically product management, every day we're faced with how to start, stop, or continue work in some methodological way. And so if we don't prioritize effectively, and if we don't think about prioritizing as, especially our backlogs or even just the work we do on a day-to-day basis, and that's a common interview question for those that have changed jobs recently or been through different interviews for product management, ultimately it will lead to unhappy customers. That's why it's of the utmost importance. And I want to take the time out to give a different analogy, more physical product. physical product or resources, which you can see here, a photo of a ship that is it's in bad shape, right? But imagine if you're a shipbuilder, and as a shipbuilder, you're the product team as well as engineering team for the company, and the ship, it looks like this, right? It looks very much so rusty. It's falling apart, but maybe there's folks on the team that want to, reinvigorate this ship to this product line, even though we can clearly see that over time it becomes in bad shape. Maybe there's someone that wants to reinvigorate the engine, or even the structure, or just many different things, right? So there's a lot of decisions that can be made, or you could just kill this product line, right, and move forward with a different ship product. And so no matter what you do, it's all about prioritizing when it comes to deciding on what to do. And once you decided to keep the product, then now what do you do next to make a ship like this back whole again? And this may be in a product support category, but you kind of get the point, is that ultimately, you can move on or kill the product or even keep it. And so the bottom line is time to market is impacted by this type of prioritization, right? So if you decide to keep it, then, it may take you several years just to bring this product back whole again, so it doesn't ever get into a shape like this. So again, it's a funny analogy, especially seeing a ship in this case, but I think everyone gets the point of prioritization. So, and I usually give these other talks on lines in the sand prioritization framework. So it's a framework that I created several years ago to which every aspect, it's basically broken down into 3 different aspects, which are lines in the sand. So if you think about being on the beach, you're racing someone, you draw a line in the sand, or you draw a line in the dirt. That line could be erased quickly. It could be erased by the rain. It could be erased by one of your partners or family members or whatnot. So that's why I like the analogy of lines in the sand, because even in business, as product management teams or engineering teams, things need to be similar to that kind of construct, right? Whereas today, your focus may be on releasing a product and focusing on core features. And in this case, I have core features around 70%, again, as a generic kind of number or generic line of sand. But if you're focused on launching your first initial product, you might be pouring all of your effort into core product features, because there is no product that's in market. And then similarly, if you have a product that's in market today, you have a set of customers. Those customers have needs, they have wants, they have desires for you to support them. There's also maybe business risks that may come up, such as legal things such as, data privacy laws may come up, and you need to make changes to your product in order to keep the product going, which I call keep the lights on, right? And so, but if you're spending all of your time on keep the lights on requests, which in some cases you may have to for certain years, again, that's where the line in the sand either decreases or increases. And then ultimately, in order to, the lifeline of any company is innovation, right? Any technology company is innovation, whether it's physical products or digital products, et cetera. And so at least you should be spending 10% thinking about new innovation, new ideas, experimenting. And then, of course, in this case, you see that depending on where you draw the line, your product backlog becomes affected and prioritized in the manner that I show here on the screen. But so ultimately, these can move up or down, but it's a good framework for a good frame of mind. And then I have inputs here, which are just samples to each area. And then of course, your primary KPIs that you must think about on a continuous basis when you're thinking about outcomes, which I'll talk about in a second. So again, just a framework here for prioritization. Hopefully this makes sense to everyone. And then, before I talk about the 5 different strategies, I would say that any product that you work on can be considered for either the framework I just showed or even the different 5 prioritization strategies, right? I mean, we have things from platform products, commercial off-the-shelf products, which is COTS, which is a product that you purchase from a different company and integrate it, right? As I always say, we're either going to build and integrate products in a company. So, and it applies, and prioritization can apply across the board. It actually can apply to things outside of products. But the whole point here is, in case there's a question that comes up, is how can I apply this to my B2B product, or a product that is a fully digital product, like a payments product, or a data product, which is, a cube environment, or a data warehousing platform, or something along this line, or even a physical product like a phone. Can I apply this there? And yes, you can. Ultimately, any product requires prioritization, right? Because every day there's decisions that are made either for now or for later. And always remember, decisions you make now can affect later. So, and can affect your customers. So you can see companies that are going on demise. And today, depending on the type of product in this, COVID pandemic timeframe, we see companies now that, have made decisions before, and then now the pandemic's impacting them. So think about that when you think about also, the times we're going through today, which is very applicable as I talk about the strategies. And for the 5 product prioritization strategies, I like for you to keep imagining in your mind a music subscription platform. So I think that's something I can talk about generically, again, without endorsing any platform. As an American Express employee, I'm unable to endorse platforms, but nonetheless, just imagine for these strategies that you have a music subscription platform that I'm going to discuss and kind of compare and contrast for each one of the product prioritization strategies. So my number 5 one is probably it's probably no surprise because I had it in the framework, which is KTLO. You must prioritize your keep the lights on requests. And some businesses call this run the business, RTB, et cetera. And then, going into the example of a music subscription platform, if you have digital rights management as part of that music subscription platform in order to manage downloads, if, a person may want to download the music on a physical device or subscribe to just hear streaming music, there's legal risk and risk management that needs to be taken into play. So consideration. So each country has its own kind of music laws that are related to digital rights management, or there's also global laws related to that, right? And if you're non-compliant, then you're going to be shut down in certain countries. So you must consider that as part of, as part of your backlogs, as part of like your priorities, having continuous conversations with legal risk. And again, this is just 5 different examples, but I think you can see the point here, which is, there are several examples that I can give you where teams have deprioritized, keep the lights on request. They lost customers. And you can see in this case, I have infrastructure on here as well. If one is not monitoring compute, network, or storage, and just think about like if you have a subscription service that's in the cloud and you're not thinking about, apps running, isolating apps, and a variety of different things that could impact your customers as you're streaming data to them for listening to music, or if you have different, one single zone and you're not zoning things appropriately. All of these things are, again, I would say things that you may have set up, but in order to keep the lights on, you must consider, right? And that's why I call it keep the lights on, because, or else your existing customer base you can lose very quickly. So, and again, there's other options on here. So just consider that as you are prioritizing your backlogs, this request is definitely a key. And then next, I would say enterprise thinking. This is really a broad term. I've seen this type of thinking not be in the minds and hearts of product managers, engineers, as well as data scientists across my career, where control is a factor, right? So and when I say control, I mean, you're building, in this case, a music subscription service. Let's say you started from scratch. You want to assume control. You want you and your team to own digital rights management portion of it. You want you and your team to own the content management server. You want you and your team to own the actual UI, the user interface, or the mobile app. And you start creating these monolithic kind of products without thinking about modularity, right? And when I use digital rights management as an example, maybe in the future, if you scale it as a platform, digital rights management can be utilized from a music perspective by any company. Maybe that can become your product or service in the future, right? When it comes to, again, use subscription. Or maybe you have machine learning that you're using to predict new songs, predict new pieces of content to show. You have a propensity model, which is a basic model to effectively score the different types of music or different types of content or the marketing that you may have in there, right? And all of these can scale to be utilized as individual products, even if you're just creating a let's just say a siloed per se music subscription service. You can see how the different modules or pieces can be used for different for different things. So the bottom line is, while you're building this type of service or while you're building your products, you must think about how can I use these modules for many things and as a platform versus as a siloed product and just one service that you're providing to your users, because anything can be broken apart and used differently. And I would also say, to some of the points I have here on the slide, when you're thinking about globalizing your product as well, in some cases, again, if you're building a music subscription service, let's say in Japan, or let's say in Korea or something like this, you may only be thinking about the laws that are associated with that subscription service there, or you may be only thinking about the user base there, right? And I would say you'll be selling yourself pretty short. Although again, that's why this is number 4, because this may not be the top priority to say you want to scale to all markets, because it depends on your strategy. But ultimately, you must think about it, right? You must think about, okay, well, this year I am not going to go outside of Japan. I'm focusing on Japan. I'm doubling down their music heavy user base. Therefore, that's what I'm going to do. And all of our teams know Japanese, so it makes sense. But again, considering it in terms of prioritizing is key. So the takeaway here on this is enterprise thinking deals with 2 areas. One is, our 2 key areas, which is, modularity in terms of building your product, right? So that perhaps pieces of it can be used for different services. And then the other thing is segmentation or product globalization, which, depending on your target market, could change the way that you build your product over time, right? And that all deals with how you prioritize it, right? And aligns with your strategy. And number 3, number 3 item on my list, I struggled with this one because, I was trying to figure out if this should be number 1 and again, I'm presenting them as numbers here, but this could be number 1 or could be number 2. But ultimately, this is the highway, right? For those that don't set OKRs, I would say start a movement in your organization, because every company should be driven, at least from a tops down fashion, or even bottoms up, or even within your own team, if there is no OKRs across your company, by outcomes or OKRs. Again, it was started by John Doerr, who worked with Intel Corporation back in the 90s, and they pioneered this framework, which the likes of many companies use, like Google and many others that I can, again, not endorsing, but I'm naming. So again, it stands for those that are not familiar with the framework. It stands for objectives and key results, and effectively, it's a highway for your teams to prioritize, right? Going back to the whole prioritization discussion, right? So music subscription service, right? You have an OKR. It's focused on enhancing, depending on, for that year, you may say, hey, I want an outcome to enhance the customer experience for making payments, right, on this platform, because there's high friction in terms of making payments. And so you want to see a uptick in and payments being processed and versus abandoning the subscription cart, right? And so if everyone at the company who has a piece of this music subscription service, so again, going back to my example of some may have digital rights management, another may have content management, another may have, payments, right? And there's these 3 different teams, let's just say, that are working together on this key objective. At least everyone has a highway. So if I'm digital rights management, if there's enhancements that need to be made for this product subscription payments portion of this OKR, then basically I'll be focused on that. I won't be focused on enhancing it for other things that are outside of that, right? So again, this creates your highway, which is, which I have a whole talk around OKRs that I could give at some point in the future. But just know that this is the highway for the team. Think about if you didn't have a highway and if you just had dirt roads and you're trying to get to an endpoint, everyone will go their own way and you may not achieve the same result. And that's usually what happens without outcomes of OKRs at companies. So, and companies have been transformed through just something simpler like this. And so again, helps you to prioritize and not basically, go on your own path or go on your own road, right? So with that said, I'll leave you with a message from Peter Drucker, who's one of the great management leaders. You can't manage what you cannot measure, right? So just keep that in mind. And how would it look like for an OKR? Well, I kind of explained one in the example of the music subscription service. So if you would apply, O1 is basically your objective one, to be the top mobile platform by monthly active users across all countries. That's something that everyone could get aligned to if you're working, like I said, if working on a music subscription service. Okay, we have a mobile app. We want to be able to scale this platform. Today we have 20 million users. We want to have 40 million by the end of the year. All right, what are the features and enhancements that we need to make for this purpose? Or maybe what are the things we need to do? Maybe there's more marketing that's required. Maybe there's globalization that's needed, right? Because maybe the country that you're operating in, you've already maxed out the potential. But either way, everyone is aligned to the 40 million number by the end of the year, and they're focused right on it. So, and then another example is launching an onboarding platform. And maybe everyone here has seen mobile experiences in some cases, or registration flows or onboarding, as I would call it, sometimes are done via a desktop website, and the mobile app is just to log in and use the service. So in this case, if there was a team that's working on the onboarding experience, and there's other, again, platforms that plug into that onboarding, right? Capturing the data about the customer, capturing their payment information, and then, deciding on which subscription service to use, et cetera. And then maybe even some, deciding what type of music they listen to so that, their screen could be cold start personalized, right? From the beginning. You may, now everyone, all these different teams that are working on different things, personalization aspects, machine learning, payments, et cetera, are all aligned to it again. So I don't want to belabor on the topic, but I think you guys get the point that, this changes how you prioritize all the features that each team is working on, and creates that lane or highway. And then everyone can get on board with the 5 million users, right? By the end of the year, right? And so, but you don't always have to specify by the end of the year. Sometimes just be to 40 million users, and that's it. And everything's all good. So again, just wanted to go into illustration because not everyone understands. I have a whole talk, like I said, around OKRs. Innovation at the core. This is like one of my pet peeves. Like I'm a believer in innovation. I'm a believer in experimentation. And when I say experimentation, I'm not talking about A/B testing or things like this, because that's typically what people talk about, or A/B testing or multivariate testing or factorial testing. What I'm talking about here is experimenting with different, with new innovations on existing platforms. So in some cases, just net new creations, like just creativity. Hey, I want to create a way to use geolocation for my users to know exactly, like, in that location, there's certain subscription services that are listening to a certain type of music, to hard rock or something like that. So therefore, I want to create things based on geolocation. So again, you can kind of like see what I'm talking about here, which is it could be net new creation, it can be if you can have an ideas program within your company, which you kind of pull ideas from. You can look at other companies and see what they're doing. You know, what's the latest innovation in the markets today, like blockchain or again machine learning, which is being heavily used, or natural language processing by many different tools. So again, innovation at the core is key. And again, aspire from the best of the best. And I'm not endorsing anyone here. And again, that's why you see the presentations pretty generic in terms of the company. But I think everyone knows if you Google things, if you Google 4 different companies, you'll know who's one of the top innovators in there, and try to aspire from them and use that as inspiration in your product backlogs. But your backlog should have some sort of like forward progression, right? Movement, or else I would call product managers that don't have innovation, which there are a lot that don't in their backlog. I would say that they are resting, investing, as using a stock analogy, right? And if you rest, invest on a stock, then effectively that stock can quickly tank and your portfolio will not be diverse, right? Using a stock analogy. So just think about this as a future investment that's being made now. And even if you fail, you still learn from it. So you should prioritize, again, innovation as part of it. And then, lastly, I would say customer centricity is always like my number one thing. I mean, again, I think, you can look at companies out there that again, many companies prioritize their customers, and they should, no matter what. It's like bar none. You must prioritize with your customers. And if you're writing up a new document, a PRFAQ, or a new creation, right? It should be for a customer's need or a need that's in the market. And so again, you start you consider this, right? In terms of, either whether it's a KTLO request, going back to the number 5, or if it's innovation, is there a customer's need, or is this just something cool that I'm working on, right? There may be no market need and you're just trying to take a problem and sell it to customers. And in that case, you may be in a startup mode learning, but remember 94+% of startups don't make it, and they just try, right? So definitely this will all depend on what stage in the product life cycle that your product is at. But nonetheless, I would say, customer is number one. And I'll leave on this this kind of analogy, which is outside of music subscription service, more in a physical goods space. So the last point I have here, which is using qualitative and quantitative methods for determining prioritization. So what I mean by that is you have like focus groups, you have analytics that you can use about existing customers, you have usability studies that you can do with your existing customers with your new creations to kind of determine what their likes are, what their likes are not. And because there's a company in the United States, it's actually a physical goods company, household goods. They created a product called the Swiffer, and it's basically like a paper towel on a stick. And that product was actually innovated through a customer focus group, where people were using paper towels to wipe up floors and then reusing paper towels over and over again. And so it came up with the innovation of $1 billion industry, calling it a Swiffer. I'm not sure if it's worldwide, this physical product, but you can look it up if you don't know what it is. But a $5+ billion market was created by just sitting down, just listening to the customer. So always remember, you can inspire new innovation from listening to the customer, and it should always be considered in terms of how you prioritize your backlog. So again, simply said, the takeaway from this is, time to market can be impacted by prioritization, as I said in the beginning with the framework. So consider the 5 points that I made. Again, there's many others, but know that it can apply to any product, any service, any offering, and also be considerate that it's not fixed. If you have 100 items 100 different items in your backlog, and if you said I want to spend 60% of my time on core product features, well, sometimes that 60, you may focus on 60 of those items in the backlog that are core product features, but that can always change, right? today it could be 60, tomorrow it could be 70, the next day it could be 100, right? Or 100%, if you will, or 100 features, or 100 small features for that, or maybe all product support, right? It depends on where you're at in your product lifecycle, right? And I've seen them all across my career, and you know, and then ultimately, I would say, lastly, customer centricity is most important, as I just mentioned, as number one. So with that said, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. Hopefully, you found this fruitful. Maybe you've already known some of these things, but maybe it's just a reiteration of the point, right? So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll take any questions.
Sure. Thank you so much. So this is the time for questions, guys. You should make use of this opportunity. Greg, we have one question here from Karthik. How are the integrations or intersections managed when we have different product managers owning their own highway? Is there some best practice or framework that's available to manage the platform?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say I will go back to the point that I was making regarding, like, you have like, let's say 5 different integrations, and I used this music service as an example, right? Like, so part of a music service platform, you have content management, you have a team, data science team focused on machine learning. You may even have an analytics team. You may have different integrations as part of from different partners, right? And you kind of like are prioritizing all these different things, right? But ultimately, like, this product has a product strategy, right? This product also has, which strategy is another prioritization strategy or prioritization point, right? So this product has a product strategy. This product has or platform has a roadmap, and this platform has objectives or OKRs. So typically, I would say, going back to the point of the OKR number 3, OKRs usually are what drive everyone that's part of this platform to a common point. If there is no objective and OKR assigned, then you don't work on it, right? And if those OKRs are has work from each one of these different teams that are doing these integrations, then you're all good. Then you know exactly where to head, right? And if the features that you're working on should be focused on those specific objectives, right? But I would say without having those objectives, I can see the work can be troubling, right? But and again, I give a whole talk on OKRs, and there's a whole book on it by John Doerr, that I would reference to look up as well.
Great, thank you. Since we were discussing OKRs, there is one question from Mary Patrick. For a struggling product, should we go for OKRs or KPIs?
For a struggling product, so if it's a struggling product in terms of market, like, I would say again, going back to the framework of an OKR, which being objective and key results. The key results portion of an OKR is effectively the KPI is part of that, right? You have a metric, right, that for that particular product, right? Again, mobile app, you want monthly active users, daily active users, et cetera, right? That's a KPI. But again, you still need to achieve some outcome, right? Even if it's a dying product, you want to reinvigorate that product. You want to take the product or kill it, right? Like maybe you want to shift it to a different product, right? So, because your strategy changes, right? So, and I've seen companies just, again, kill products really quickly or decide to reinvigorate them to invest more. But ultimately, you're going to be in the best hands with creating objectives, and which is why I found it, key to put on the list, right? And so KPI is part of OKRs, and that's why, like I said, I'd recommend looking up information on OKRs, and there's a lot on the web, and especially associated with John Doerr, who is the founder and creator of the OKR.
Great. So, Mary, I hope you have your answer. There's a question from Ram Reddy. Urgency or impact? What would you go for when you prioritize a product? Urgency or impact in the market?
So I would say it depends. Urgency. urgency, meaning to get the product out there in the market. I mean, it depends on the product or service, right? And where I'm at. Like if I have, you know, portfolio, which today, you know, at my current role, I have a portfolio of like 36 plus products, right? And like, if I'm creating a new product and to just make an impact, the company's doing pretty well. So basically, you know, I can go with urgency, right? So I have the latitude to move with urgency. Now, if I'm a startup or even I can go with impact, right? In that scenario. And if I'm a startup, I'm probably thinking about urgency, right? I have a lot of investors that have invested in me, right? And so like, and they want quarter by quarter, month by month updates, right, to the board. And so effectively, like in that case, urgency is key, right? It's kind of like getting something out there for people to try, right? But if I just said, if I had none of those, if I didn't know the situation, I'm just going into it blind. And if I'm saying urgency or impact, they're probably not congruent, but if I just had to pick it for you and say 50-50 shot, right? I'd definitely go with the urgency, because the principle that I've learned from one of my good mentors is fail fast and succeed sooner. And the quicker that you can get something out there and fail, the more quicker you can learn, and then the faster that you can, you know, iterate and return the product back. Impact, sometimes you might have a forecasted impact, and that forecasted impact may not be, you may fail anyways, right? Like 6 months later by waiting 6 months, right? So you might as well get something out there, right? So I would say blindly, I'd pick urgency, but then hopefully you kind of like saw my points on the two other scenarios, right? How you would judge that too.
That's a wonderful point. Ram Reddy, I think that's something to ponder on regarding urgency and impact, and how you can correct any kind of mistakes, you know, if you go with urgency. Anyways, moving on to the next question we have from Sangeeta Kataria. How do you balance out inputs from various stakeholders, such as sales, deployment, support, management, etc., for prioritization decisions, especially for B2B products?
Yeah. So the way I understand your question is, if it's a B2B product, you have like, you have different teams in the company that are working on, that are wanting, you know, certain enhancements because they need to make a sale, for example, right? And so I think it goes back to, you know, I hate to say like the same answer for this question, but I feel like it is the same answer, right? I mean, like, if sales, marketing, you know, other stakeholders internally, risk, you know, if there's a risk team or fraud team or something like this, let's say, like they all have these wants, right? And at the end of the day, if everyone has the same objective, then it's very easy. And I won't say it's super easy, because definitely there'll be some more granularities from that objective, which is more wider, right? But if you have 10 features, and let's say 3 of those are from sales, 3 of those are from marketing, another from customers, right, that are coming in, and then maybe there's like 2 more that are from tech internally, right, optimizations. And that queue, if the objective is to, you know, to comply with a new law or new regulation, for example, then no matter what, that's the objective. And so if the sales ask is not aligned to that, then perhaps perhaps you may have to either create a new OKR or create a new objective that aligns with the sales ask, or you'll have to go back to sales and say, hey, these are the focus things for the company. This is all the way up from my team all the way up to the top. And so this is how we get graded, because the part, again, going back to OKRs training, portion of it that I didn't talk about today was basically the grading part of it. So like, you're literally graded on this at the end of the year, and the team grades themselves, and then you're grading yourself within the organization. So I always feel that, like, and I use Google as an example because it's published, there's a publishing on it, right? Not from an endorsement standpoint, but Google, when they moved to OKRs, you know, they became much more effective. And again, there's a lot of articles on that. And they, you know, and of course everyone knows that company. So that's the biggest example that I can use. And I'm sure they have a lot of requests coming from different areas. And so product management would have to consider the objective for the team and focus forward, right?
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. Sankita, I hope you had your answer. Now we have a question from Puneet Sadrangani. Puneet, I'm not sure if you made a mistake in the spelling or did you actually mean to say customer eccentricity? So here is the question, Greg. When we speak about customer eccentricity in an organization, every next level chain becomes a customer to the previous level. How can the organization tackle individual level requirements effectively while adhering to specific targets?
So if I understand the question correctly, because I talked about customer centricity and that's more like an organization level, like more like an ethic, if you will. But then you have individual features or products that individual feature or products that now you need at a tactical level that you need to kind of prioritize, right? So how does that play in? At least I just wanted to restate the question if that's correct. And if that's the correct question, I would say each, and I don't know for who just answered the question, the name, sorry, I missed it. But for your question, if you think about it, I mean, you've probably been part of organizations before where like someone has a good idea or there's like more emphasis on engineering, for example, in the organization, and like people don't really care about what the customer thinks, right? Like that's, I've been part of many organizations, let's just say, and again, I'm not naming any, but to where that was the situation, right? Where it was like an engineering oriented organization, whatever we wanted to do as engineering, that took the priority. There was zero input from the customer, and there's, and even at the top, like from a ethics perspective, from a company, what do you call it, leadership values or a company value perspective, that's probably what you were referencing. Customer was up there, right, as one of the values, but it wasn't being translated to the teams. It wasn't being translated to the products. And what happened in that environment was it suffered, right? The product suffered because, we had a lot of great ideas. We had a lot of good inputs, but it ended up failing, and we ended up, we ended up having to kill the product, right? And that's why it's one of my number ones. I've seen a lot of products be killed because it's, I would say, engineering oriented product management, which is let's think about the latest and greatest ideas, but it doesn't actually align to a customer. It doesn't actually, like, there is not a customer need, right? In the market, or basically there is a customer need, but no one has focused on it, right? There might be a whole lot of, let's say for a particular product, there might be a whole lot of disabled people that are using your product. But if you don't know that because you haven't listened to the voice of the customer, or you haven't participated in side-by-side calls, if you actually have a call center that's associated with your product, or if you're not, conducting focus groups, like there's no way for you to even know that, right? You're just thinking, I know what my customers are, and there's a lot of people out there that believe me, that are, product or engineering or design, that think they already know, right? And so that's the principle of this, right? Is that you don't really know, right? And but once you do talk to customers, and once you do have conversation with them, and once you do conduct focus groups or even have quantitative studies done, conjoin activities or what have you, you'll be able to find out exactly really what their needs are, and everything that you do should be aligned to that, right? And if no customer is attached to it, then you have to look at yourself and ask the question, well, what's the point, right? And again, it doesn't have to be existing customer. There could be a market opportunity. So that's the point I was making before. It could be a new or existing customer or prospect. So hopefully that makes sense.
Great. I think this answer may lead to another question from Shiva here. Maybe we have, Greg, you have already answered part of it, but please feel free to choose if you want to go ahead with that question. How would you enable effective communication with the engineering team on prioritization? Is his question.
Enable effective communication. That's an interesting one because it depends, right? There's multiple factors, right? And I'll give you one factor, which is, product in some cases, I've seen where there are, let's just call it non-technical product managers hired into a company, right? And and the engineers know that, right? Because for those that don't have engineering backgrounds that go into product management, engineers know that, okay, this person really, or they made up their mind, right? And they said, hey, this person is not, technical enough to understand what my job is, right? And so then when they make that type of judgment, they effectively don't really, their inputs are not really taken seriously or not taken well. And then the product ends up becoming a technical product because of the, lack of knowledge, let's say on the product manager's behalf, to effectively guide the team and lead the team and communicate to the team exactly why they're doing something and what happens. But I always find that the fix to that is one, relationships, because I think, there could be a relationship broken, or something along those lines, which could impact prioritization again, because if you're debating with your engineering team about every little feature because that person has this belief about you, then definitely it'll be very difficult for you to get things prioritized effectively, right? So I would say that, again, there's so many different scenarios, ways I could go here, but I would say effective relationships here can basically change beliefs, right? And sometimes it might require that product manager to get into details, right, of that engineer's job, of that engineer's role, or whatever, if they're application engineer, then maybe there's coding React, for example, React JavaScript, and learn more about it and kind of understand exactly what they're what they do on a day-to-day basis, so that you can win their kind of win their trust, right? So trust, yeah. So like I said, there's probably more prioritization strategies, and I would say trust. That's a great point, right? Communication, trust, is all key, is key, right? And so my statement is not to say, or the results of what I'm saying is not to say that a product manager that is non-technical can't be a product manager in a technical product. It just means that they might have to learn a little bit more about it. They might have to win the trust of engineers. And I found that to be the most effective way to garner communication, or more effective communication, and as well as have less friction in terms of prioritizing.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Jacob Koitra. Again, the question is in a complex project setup, when we have various key stakeholders having varied interests, how do we prioritize the product? I think another person has also answered, but Greg, please take a call.
Yeah, so great question. Kind of answered a little bit, but just to be more specific, I mean, think about the startup world, right? You have these angel investors that you need to answer to, right? So and when you initially got this Series A, B, C funding, wherever you're at, right? You pitched them something, right? You said, okay, going back to my example, I'm going to make this music subscription service, and I'm going to have 5 million users, right? I already have 2 million users. I'm going to have 5 million within the next 3 months, right? So it's still, again, no matter how you slice it, you still have some objective meets to win the likings of the angel investors or whoever is investing in the company, right? And obviously the CEO may have his own input, or there may be other team members that have their own input, but still, even if you're still trying to innovate that product and you're trying to win, you're trying to target a goal. If you found a new way to develop because there was a new market opportunity that existed within that product, for example, you still may have to you still can create a new objective. You can still make a new pitch, right? And I know again, in that world, there's a lot of meetings that take place on a monthly basis. So there's always an opportunity to dazzle the investor, or if there's something new that you thought of, going back to kind of innovation at the core, that was not part of the original pitch, to come back, and they might shoot it down, quite frankly, and then you just have to go with it, and you can't develop whatever you thought. You have to put it on the backlog. So then it becomes deprioritized. So no matter what, the guidance of the investors, as well as which becomes the objectives for the company, and the guidance of the CEO and chief product officer, or whatever roles are at the company, right? Sometimes you may have those roles or not, right? Depending on how small the company is, the guidance is there, right? It's just, if even without having an OKR framework, the guidance is already there, right, in terms of what your goals are, especially in a smaller startup. So I would say, I guess that would be my answer to that question.
Great, thank you. Let's take one last question. This is from Ashutosh Raj. What are your views on a social product? How do things change when your user base can be a very targeted, big community?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's that's a great question. And again, I've worked for many companies that had like a lot of users, let's just say, right, from a consumer perspective, right? And obviously, like us, depending, there's big social media network that's out there, which like 2 billion users, right? Like, and like I said, I'm not endorsing anyone. And then you can have a small one, but ultimately, there's I would say like you have inputs from you still need to consider inputs from those customers, right? At the end of the day. And a lot of these platforms, it's super easy to look at analytics and insights, right? Data and analytics on how users are effectively using the products on your platform to determine like what the next objective is. If you put a new video service on the social media, on a social platform, and there's like no one is using it, either there's a problem with marketing or there's a problem with your product, right? And if you've done a lot of marketing and there's a problem with your product, well, then you can cast a survey. You can still like, run a survey or do a focus group or whatever the case is to determine like what the problem is, right? So I feel like there's, no matter if the audience is like 1 million or the audience is 1 billion, there are still ways to affect your prioritization and take in consideration, especially quantitative methods to determine the exact things that you need to focus on or determine your objectives, right? Because even if you had 1 billion people, you won't get 1 billion inputs, right? Because not everyone likes doing market research or likes surveys, for example. So I would say there are ways to do it, and again, that's probably another talk that I can probably give in the future.
And that would be great. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for your time tonight and some great insights and actionable insights. I hope all of you enjoyed this. Please accept the certificate of appreciation from us. And here is a QR code which will take you to your own Hall of Fame webpage. So we have created a dedicated webpage for you. The recording of this session will be made available on the webpage, and we will be sharing this recording with everybody. And we hope to work with you again, Greg. It was a pleasure hosting you. Thank you so much. You guys may have more questions. Please keep it coming on the LinkedIn thread. And Greg, may I request you to pick the winner for the day? The best question.
The best question I would say is I like the customer centricity. I can't remember the name, but if you recall that question, I would say that would be the favorite one of the night.
It is Puneet. Puneet, Puneet, you are the winner. Puneet Sadrangani. Congratulations, Puneet. We will reach out to you with your gift. And so keep attending our webinars and keep winning and keep learning most of all. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, everyone. So that's a wrap for tonight.